I've been doing this for about almost 25 years, but in 2016 I started a sales business, and so we're a distributor. We're out of Southington. So okay, so anyway, so really all you have to do is spray it on the stone, but certainly you can brush and rinse, and it speeds up the process. But most of the stones that I've cleaned here, and you can see all the ones that are clean, like the ones right behind you. All I did is spray it on. I didn't brush anything.
Wow.
So it takes a long time that way, like months. Like they'll be clean like next year. And so if you brush and rinse, they tend to get clean a little more quickly.
So even the rain, you just spray it on and leave it, and the rain will come, and eventually it'll just work. Wow.
Yes. That's pretty much the size of it. So,
good company.
But I do a lot of workshops, and a lot of people want to brush and rinse the stones, and sometimes they don't get clean in one application as well if you don't brush them. Sometimes you need a second application. But this is a marble monument, and interesting too. Marble upper, marble headstone, marble upper base, and there's a whole nother base under there that's sunken or just buildup of sediment. So there's a whole nother base like that, and this one, it's sunk.
Wow.
And or there's a buildup of sediment around it.
Because it would have matched, you're saying, the ones next to it.
Approximately, and you can see the double one over there is also very, very low.
Yeah.
So like the lower bases on many of these are sandstone, Connecticut sandstone. On these, they're marble straight through, but this one I can't even tell. But I think this is marble also. But this one looks like brownstone at the bottom, which is common. A lot of the bases are brownstone. Then as time went on, they move over to granite. And so like those over there, those are brownstone bases. The next row up, those two stones, that's marble, similar. And then the lower. Now that black lichen is really tenacious. This stuff right here is a nightmare, and it does not come off easily. So when you come into stuff like that, the best you can do is brush it, rinse it, and then you could do a second application. It will eventually come off, but it's really tenacious. So we can just spray this right on the stone. That's going to be the most effective that way. And I have stuff to give you, all just like this. And so these sprayers are really convenient. Also, this is adjustable. Just a couple things. You never want to fill it to the top because you're spraying with air pressure, so you only want to go up about this high. And then when you pump it up, it'll build up pressure. And also, you have to make sure it's tight enough. That was actually a little loose, to make the seal in here, and so that it builds up pressure.
And you spray it full strength, John?
Yes. Now we can adjust this from a stream to a mist, and we can tap the trigger. I mean, we don't have to hold it down the whole time. Now, a lot of time you're going to see a color change immediately on a warm day like today, which is a chemical reaction that the cleaner is working. So you're going to get some immediate improvements, and then you're going to get residual effects also after the fact. So
already I can see it. Wow.
Yeah. So I'm just going to apply it, and for the bottom, it'll pretty much run down. And again, this monument really should be raised, but we're not doing that right now. So I'm just going to apply the cleaner. Now, some people want to brush and rinse first with water. It's really not necessary. It's not harmful, but it's going to be more effective undiluted. And so we're going to just spray it just to get it wet. And then usually in a brush and rinse method, we're going to wait, say 10 or 15 minutes, but we can get going right away. It's not going to make that much difference. Okay, so it's pretty much, I mean, you can, if you're worried about the bottom, you can add a little more.
Are there any stones you should not use D2 on?
No, you can spray it on anything. So believe it or not, something like this, a lot of time you can see the original color. That's the color of the stone. That's the only clean spot on the whole stone. And so there's probably a base also for this little marker. Another thing is that historically they had footstones a lot of time associated with the headstones, and in many situations they've been removed. These are modern footstones, like granite flush markers, But I'm saying monuments like this would have had markers almost definitely that would have been right about here, about 6 feet away, usually with the initials of the deceased. And the reason they're not here generally is they were removed for maintenance. And that's a very common thing in historic burying grounds. Okay, so we're giving that a few minutes. Now we can also, I'll go over and I'll just spray, because more time is good. And so these are granite, and granite is a much harder material, so we can be a bit more aggressive on it. And generally after 1900, they started to become more and more granite. And this is a raised marker. I can tell what kind of granite just because I know stone pretty well. This is from Westerly, Rhode Island, which was a very coveted granite. And I might be wrong because that doesn't look like Westerly if it's the same color, but it has the appearance of that. That could be like Stony Creek or something, but the graves around the more historic grave monuments are probably from Barre, Vermont, in this region. Marble is highly sensitive to acids, and so you never want to use any acid-based cleaners on a marble stone. Granite is more resilient. However, muriatic acid is still not a good cleaner. It's not, and it's generally not necessary anyway. But with marble, you want to be more careful because so marble starts out as in its most basic form as like seashells, like oysters, clams, and then those are almost pure calcium carbonate. And those organisms don't live that long. Eventually, the shells end up crushed to the bottom of ancient oceans and turn into limestone. And then limestone gets converted to marble from pressure underground, and so limestone and marble are like related materials.
So
Okay.
John, how did you come to do this? Are you associated with the church, the cemetery,
I'm like the top expert in the country. So I'm
That's why I'm asking.
associated with no one person. I got into this field in the mid 1980s initially as a monument installer of modern monuments, and then became a grave digger before the next year was out. And so then I was working in the modern aspect of it, and I got more interested in the historical aspect. And in the latter part of the 90s, I seeked out a lot of training, went to workshops, joined groups like Association for Gravestone Studies and Preservation Trades Network, on and on. And so then I was able to, right around year 2000, to get out of the new work and concentrate on the restoration. But I had a very diverse background. Before that, I had went from fine woodworking to building houses, and then I switched to monuments, and so I've done almost every trade. Actually went to violin making school, so
Cool.
in the early 80s. So we can, yeah, it was a long time ago.
Well, it gives you a good perspective on, the techniques.
So we can use plastic scrapers, and all scrapers are not created alike. So what we like is flexible, soft plastic, because the plastic wears away. And all these things, we sell. I'm going to give you stuff right now after. So the raised lichen, we can just scrape it off pretty quickly, and that just saves a little time and keeps the brushes from getting clogged. Scrapers are not always necessary. I saw there's a lot more on the back, so you might want to walk around to the back of this, and you can see there's a lot more to scrape on the back, and so this saves time. And you can see, because I wet it already, I put the D2 on it, it just falls to the ground. So you could spray it with water and do this, but I recommend not doing it on a dry stone because you'll be breathing it off. But when you spray it first, it drops to the ground like that. Okay, and another thing to keep in mind, it's hard to believe, but these marble stones when they were first new, were polished. And the polish has worn away through weathering, through rain, acid rain, and just the elements, basically. But if you go to the western states that are very arid and large swaths of the country, like Colorado, Utah, New Mexico, inland on the west coast, California, and you'll see marble that's like pristine, that's still polished, that looks completely different. But in most of the country, it's eroded to varying degrees, and the more polluted the area, the more erosion generally. Okay, so
Acid rain.
okay, so this is the water, and so we're going to use some kind of fairly soft bristle brush. This is one style, and this is called Tempico, which is a natural fiber. And these are about the most friendly to the marble, and they work really well. We just want to wet it first as a new brush. And I mean, you could be on the back or the front. It doesn't really matter. I like to keep water running. You have to periodically pump these little sprayers up. Now, I didn't even bring one. We do have like a 1 or 2 gallon size that actually runs on a battery. And so you don't have to pump it at all. They're quite nice. So this is having immediate effects. Now, additionally, when it dries, it'll lighten up because wet stone is always darker. And so it'll look a lot better even today. But then you'll see over the course of the next couple weeks that it'll get better and better. And so that's basically the idea. Now, we can also use smaller brushes, especially around in detail areas and things. And thing is, if you're brushing and rinsing, you go through a lot of water. So you can see how it took a lot of that dirt off, but it's not going to take everything off. You're going to get variable cleaning effects depending on the particular stone.
Still a big difference.
And how eroded it is, and its exact orientation relative to if it's not getting any sun or, trees and whatnot. Thanks. And I literally just sprayed it on. That's not an exaggeration. But I've gone through I'm going to do a project still this year here, but every time I do a project and I work on a whole bunch of stones, then I've been, in the past, 5 or 6 years, I've been treating, I call it, spraying the cleaner just like I did here, but I'll use a bigger sprayer and I'll just do one after the next, and I'll go through like 15 gallons or some large amount and do like 150 stones. Wow. But you can see also I did the tall ones because those are kind of like beacons and they stand out. And so now most of the tall ones are clean. And you can kind of see where I made it to, and then there's still a lot in the middle there where the color changes to that awful dark color, which is basically mold. The lichen is tending to be raised, and the other growth tends to be mold. The thing is, you have to realize that marble, especially once it's eroded, it's very porous, so it absorbs everything, and so that's why it gets so stained. But a lot of the staining is under the surface. So no matter how aggressive you are brushing, it takes time. And so the way the cleaner works is it actually gets under the surface, and then it will continue to clean after we leave here.
So it goes into the nooks and crannies.
This has a lot of uneven staining. I'm not sure what caused that. Almost looks like metal or something, but I don't know. Maybe there's something from a tree or something. I mean, we can also use a smaller brush, a little more targeted. This is no metal brushes. This is a nylon brush. It's a little more firm, but it also depends how hard you push. And so obviously if you're going through these contours, the bigger brush is not going to work well down here. So, I mean, ultimately that's see, a lot of that came off actually with the smaller brush. And I'll try we'll go over that granite stone and see how we do on that also. So any questions? I mean, it's really not that complicated. I mean, the main thing is having the right supplies. And so if you use like, an acid or an aggressive, like a bleach or something, it's going to be bad no matter what you do after that. So, interesting how it's...
You showed me in back some of the repairs that they've done in the past, and it destroyed the stone.
Yeah. They had some company doing some work here a long time ago that was not the most talented.
I always wondered, I was like, what the heck happened?
I think they eventually went out of business, so...
But once somebody sees the right way to do it, I'm sure they'll hire the right people.
I mean, yeah, you would hope, but... My whole thing is teaching people how to do it themselves, and that's what I've been doing all over the country. And I created this thing called the 48 State Tour, where I go all over and do workshops for free just to teach people. And so I've done tours all over the country.
Is this your own formulation, John?
No, I don't own this product. It's sold by some different distributors, but there's no other distributors around here. but I'm friends with the owner of this particular product. My company sells products into many fields. I'm an expert on monuments and also historic masonry and mortars. But we sell a large amount of products. Like we sell into like many fields: window restoration, graffiti remover, things like just all like a wide range of products. So that's
On
why.
the website.
Yeah, I have a card that I'll get a couple things I'm going to give you. So this wasn't honestly that impressive, but that it takes time. And so also under the trees, it tends to be more aggressive. And so I treated these, and you can see how they're not as clean as a lot of others. So they're not getting the sun, they're not getting the direct rain. And so if you really, I mean, they look respectful and you can read them. But if you really wanted these to be cleaner, these would take a second application. So it's going to be variable. Now this is a raised marker style. They used to call these pillow top markers sometimes. And this, you can see that this has a very small amount of polish. There's polish right here and only on the top of the letters. And so those areas will clean up most quickly. And the reason for that is they did that to contrast, because when you polish it, it becomes darker. So let's see, a smaller brush is likely to be more effective on something like this and around these letters. And I'll just concentrate in a small area. You can see it is really, really dirty. And you can speculate this has probably never been cleaned. And it's, you know, almost 100 years old. But the main thing is under the trees is really...
What are you spraying now, the water or the D2?
Oh yeah, that's a good point. That's only water.
Okay.
That was my move. Oh no, I already sprayed D2.
Yeah,
I was right, and you're making me second guess myself. I pre-treated it.
Yep.
And so then I came back with the water once it soaked in. So that's why it's better to let it sit on it for a period of time. So yes, this is only water, but the D2 is already on it.
Yep.
So the principle is that even if you spray it with D2 and you don't, and you come back the next day, it's still going to be in there. Think of it this way. It's kind of like a sponge. And if you put some soap in a sponge and you wash a few dishes, it seems like there's no soap in it. But then if you go and you put a little more water on and squeeze it, more soap will come out. And it'll keep coming out for a long time. And so stone is sort of the same. So look at, if the water running off is not clear, it's cleaning. And so you could see this cleaned a lot. And you could, and something like this, you could keep scrubbing. I mean, you could scrub away to your heart's content. I mean, it's not going to hurt it. So biological growth grows well in moist environments, and so if you don't get the sun, it's going to just keep it can grow more quickly usually.
Without getting too scientific, what is in D2?
The primary active ingredient is quaternary ammoniums, which are in some other cleaners and things, and it's quite low level relatively as far as the toxicity, but I mean, it's especially in an open air environment. So some people, and it's highly diluted. Okay, the D2 is in a ready to use form, so there's only, I believe, about 1.7% quats, so it's mostly water.
Okay.
Then there's surfactants and wetting agents. Surfactants are like soaps, and wetting agents are, you know, affect the pH and make it a more effective cleaner. So it's used a lot in national cemeteries. It's used all over the country. We sell all the way up to 55-gallon drums. So we sell a lot of 55-gallon drums, believe it or not.
Do they have people that maintain cemeteries that buy the 55-gallon drums? Or
Some do, but like national cemeteries either sub it out or do the work themselves. And so then, but yeah, so I mean, we sell a fair amount into the National Park Service, into big cemeteries, like the most prestigious, like Mount Auburn, you know, Brookline, places like that, Mount Auburn in Cambridge, Mass, the oldest garden cemetery in America. They buy drums from us periodically. We sell them to Gettysburg.
Wow.
We sell them to Mount Vernon. So you can see that helped a lot.
Yeah, look at
This
that.
was solid black, and now it took a lot of that black right off, just in one light scrub. So, you know, You can see it's a very pretty colored stone, and I'm just doing it like if I go a little more aggressive, and these brushes are quite inexpensive and they will wear away pretty quickly. So I'm just trying a test area. You can see it is taking almost all of that off.
What about the stones like in the Veterans Cemetery? Would this be okay to use?
I mean, it's the same process. Generally, the stones,
They're white.
veteran stones are owned by the government, and generally in a veteran cemetery maintained, and they should be kept clean. And you're not real, so, but there's a lot of veteran stones in cemeteries like this that never get any maintenance. And so you'll see them, just the style, the tablet stone, they're usually most often marble, but sometimes in modern times, more modern, they also make them out of granite, or they have bronze markers as well. So this won't hurt any materials, so you don't have to worry about what kind of stone it is. But as far as just identifying it, granite generally is going to be very sharp edged and still have its polish. Another thing, a heads up, this one not so much, but you have to be careful on these sharp edges, especially edges like this kind of edge. And these aren't the sharpest, but sometimes these edges, like here, this edge, this will be like sometimes almost like razor sharp. So I'm saying when you're brushing, if you accidentally hit it with your knuckles, it will cut right in. So just be careful.
You could actually do that, like right on that corner.
And of course you could wear gloves, and you know a lot of people do. And so now I kind of missed this, and this will probably come off quite nicely. See how easily that just scrapes off, and then I can come in with a brush. And now we could do a second application if we wanted to. Usually we don't have to, but it would, if you're going to, I would wait till it dries at least, or even wait till the next day. But usually it's better to give it more time, because in many situations you won't need a second application. There is a book that was written by, published by Association for Gravestone Studies. They have a series of books called Markers, and you could probably get this used. I don't think it's in print, but on like eBay, and the edition was, and every year the book is called Markers, and this was Markers 8. And that's all about Connecticut carvers. So it talks a lot about this cemetery, actually, because it talks about George Griswold, who was one of the earliest carvers in America, and by far the first in Connecticut. And so it's it's like a significant chapter in a bigger book. Most granite doesn't look like that. And so then this also is a great example. It shows you the polished versus the unpolished. And then of course there's the whole statue at the top, which
she's beautiful.
They didn't do that much statuary in America in granite in historic times, because it's so hard to work. And a lot of time they would put marble statues on top of granite monuments, because the marble could be a much more delicately carved, and usually those were imported from Carrara, Italy, to a large extent in that era. But this is a really impressive monument. All the brown, those are Connecticut brownstone for the most part. And there's a variety if they came from, depending on where they came from. And some brownstone holds up really well, and generally the best, and you're kind of in a transitional area, because if you go further north, they tend to get better and better, because the quarry, that it wasn't as historically early, but in East Longmeadow, Mass, beautiful stone, very tight grain, really strong, and it doesn't tend to delaminate. And the problem with some of the brownstones is they kind of peel apart, and that's has to do with the mineral binders and clay in them. And so the Portland, Connecticut area was the epicenter of the brownstone industry.